the African American community has not felt that they could trust the medical professional because of our history, the Tuskegee incident, even right here in this city with forced sterilization. African Americans seem to will say, uh, God will call us home when we're ready to go home.
In the broad scope of the Native American tradition and customs, it is almost a no-no to have end-of-life discussions. Some of the Asian groups, it's a no-no. Some of our Hispanic population have a tradition that says, no, you don't tell grandma she has cancer. You have bumped into a couple of sects in the Islamic population where it's a no-no. Occasionally you will find a few groups of very fundamental Protestants where letting yourself die is almost tantamount to suicide. We run into the people who never stop expecting that miracle, and somehow if you're expecting a miraculous cure, signing up for hospice doesn't seem like something you ought to do.
I think in our culture today we're afraid to talk about death. It's a natural part of life. It's a conversation that probably needs to start happening in our schools, our educational system maybe. Family members will hear our breakers will be, when you broach that subject with them, they'll be a little fearful, like, oh no, we can't bring that up yet.
They feel like this is someone that's gonna maybe help me to die.
We were working on the floor and mentioned hospice to a patient, and her daughter, who works in a nursing home, is actually convinced that hospice kills people. I didn't make any headway with the family this weekend, not a bit, because they were convinced of that. End of sentence.
Some patients, hospice tends to be kind of a hard pill to swallow for people.
When my doctor told me that, Tommy, you're going to have to go into hospice, needless to say, my heart just about busted.
You run into the perception sometimes that if we sign you up for hospice, everybody's going to turn off the lights and go home. Physicians as a group are pretty dang chauvinistic people. I think it's getting better with the newer generations, but they're pretty set in their ways and convinced that they know more than everybody else. There are physicians in our community that are notorious for not wanting hospice because that means I failed. We don't see the forest for the trees. We get so wrapped up in our patients and the treatment, and yeah, that's a barrier I have to admit to.
There are still some physicians that are very resistant to it. I mean, they're taught in medical school to heal. I've had patients tell me I was scared to ask for that from my doctor because they wanted to stop treatment, but they thought their doctor expected something different from them.
Patients sometimes don't get the opportunity to even have those services because of that, because their doctor's not willing to admit that there's nothing else the doctor can do. When's the last time you saw a palliative care advertisement? Now that's changing, it's growing. I think in an ideal world, we would see all of it knit together. And we may have to come up with another name, I don't know. But you can understand how these things could all fit together. But right now, they're sort of, remember the old Venn diagrams we had where this is this and this is this, and they overlap a little bit. But
It is a challenge for hospice to find a way for patients to access their services a little bit sooner. A lot of times it is what's thought of at the 11th hour, which is so unfortunate.
They don't get to hospice in time. They get there too late.
It's one of those things they wish they had had an opportunity to discover a little bit earlier. So
it's It's interesting that this project is about barriers to earlier admission, or let's say timely admission.
Right.
And I think what you're seeing is a maturation of the hospice concept. When we first started the hospice here back in the 70s, it literally was for people in the last few weeks of their life.
I have recalled patients that have gone through the palliative care process, and it has been a very easy transition. And I think as more people get to know what palliative care services can do, I think it will only open up that road more. I think it's been an opportunity for hospice to offer these types of services because it kind of gets them in the door a little bit earlier and gets people thinking that it's not, what a great service it can provide for people.
I think a lot of times one of us will sense, yes, we're at that point, this patient can be benefited by being part of the hospice family. There are, at least in my mind right now, different entities that complement each other.
Actually, I had not ever heard of hospice until my wife was in the hospital. I said, what is hospice?
Had I not done some volunteering with hospice, I would not have been ready when my mother became ill and they suggested that we sign her up with hospice.
I don't think it's advertised enough. And people wouldn't be so scared of hospice because it's known to be a place to go be with the Lord.
Some information that sort of breaks out what palliative care is and what hospice care is might be helpful.
What they hear is, well, if you go with hospice and come into the hospital for something else, your Blue Cross won't pay for it. They'll take away your insurance. They'll take away your house. I've heard that.
Some of them feel like, I don't have insurance, I can't afford to see a doctor.
I said, who do I write the check to? There is no check.
We learn best by stories, and when people can hear testimonies or witnesses of what from someone of what hospice meant to them and caring for their loved one, I think that's just powerful.
Those times when people are terminal, they have some of the most wonderful gifts to give to family members and to friends. Those nuggets, those stories, tying up loose ends can be some of the most wonderful times of our life.
I try to tell those family members to communicate with the doctor what a great experience they had. And when they hear it from patients and family members, how it made the process easier, then I think that has helped some.
I was told during the interview that my case is an extreme case of COPD, and that cases like this, some last 6 months, they were so easy to get along with. The paperwork was limited. I probably signed maybe 3 or 4 pages. I enjoyed it because it wasn't a long, drawn-out affair. They really look after you. 3 months ago, I couldn't walk up a pair of steps. Today, I'm walking up them steps. I'm doing things that would be unbelievable. Now they're telling me to sort of slow down. You're crazy not to get into hospice if you have the opportunity, because they can help. They can guide you and direct you, and that's about all I can say. I could give them praise all day long. That's what I think about hospice. And I tell you, there's no way that I could have made it as long as I have.